I think that term was used in my recent book, Preaching in an Age of Globalization. I am challenging readers that we need to see the context for preaching in a global perspective, the perspective, because the diversity in social status and gender and the sexuality are very important elements. But nowadays, we need to understand, the cultural dynamics and then cultural diversity within one congregation. And although we think that for example, my church is 100% Korean. So my church is a Korean monocultural context. However, when we see deeper, there are lots of diversities inside. There are some families who have intermarried, and then some families who adopted the children from other countries. And also some families have lived here in the U.S., more than one generation. But some families are just, recently arrived, they're here. So there are many different cultural diversities, within one the racial congregation. And then also our society is changing more multicultural. So our global context is not only the story out there. Our global context comes to our local context, and then our local context is getting more global, particularly for the development of information technology and the internet. So we live in a small world. So we need to consider the context for preaching in a global way. So global plus local, so it's a mixed, yeah. Again, I think our society is changing more global. And then also our church is changing, but I'm not so sure that, the many pastors and church leaders they feel urgent, urgently that, our church is getting, the more multicultural. Well, for example, some of my faculty members at school told me that, why are you interested in the local congregational culture? Because they are all the time there. And then I said, no way, they are changing. They are changing fast. So first of all, the biggest challenge, for the church leaders is to be aware of the changing trend of our culture. And then the culture is not all the time bad. We Christians all the time have a, how can I say that, sense of alienation. In other words, we are strangers on earth. We are the citizens of heaven, that kind of approach. Richard Niebuhr actually described this kind of approach as Christ and culture, but this is a kind of Christ against the culture, But I don't think the culture is all the time against Christ, because the culture is the locus where we find what God is doing. So in other words, God is working to transform ourselves, transform our society and our community. So first of all, the pastors and the church leaders should have a discernment to figure out what God is doing in order to make and keep human life human in our own culture, and then in our changing culture. So cultural sensitivity is very important. But I all the time encourage the students that the church is very important. Church is very important. And then, of course, some people say, well, the church is dying. But no way. The church is the primary place for God to be revealed to the world. So I think it is important for the local pastors to have that faith. This is not a kind of ordinary business. Doing or serving in the church is a call. And then that call can be accomplished when we have faith that God is present, God is working through the church. So where is your faith? Well, where we have faith, there is hope, I think. So I think this is my personal faith that God does not give up the church. God is still using the church as the instrument to bring justice and peace to this world. And local pastors are called to do that ministry.